In this one, I'll be talking a little bit about the Christine Anderson Tour and Trinity Productions and the three Canadian ambassadors of Trinity Productions, as well as the roadmap for what Policy Horizons Canada calls the Bio-Digital Convergence. And so for me to kind of explain this, it's basically an amalgamation of synthetic AI with biological life. And so if you think about anything like, Agenda 21 or, Paris Agreement, UNDRIP, all those things kind of actually converge on this. Because if they want to control or eradicate carbon life, then, which is everything, then they would need to control it and amalgamate it with synthetic AI. So, anyway, that is kind of where all of these things lead. So, now to begin, I've already spoken about the Court of Ages and Syndicate Courier in previous videos. So, the two previous videos to this one, people should check out if they're unfamiliar with some of the references and such I'm going to make. So, purpose of this order is to prepare the world for a paradigm change in this worldwide order to prepare for change. And it says religious ideas promulgated by entities foreign to Earth and in opposition to the interests of mankind were inserted into our energy field. And whereas these ideas were promoted as law and forcibly applied through conquest, empire, energy harvesting, mind control, bogus soul contracts, and whereas intervention is now required in order to return humankind to its natural state. Be it known that the airship fortress is now hereby ordered to. I will go over those orders in a sec. Now, you order somebody into a natural state, there's nothing natural about that sentence in and of itself. And all of these things have to do with a quote-unquote transition to natural law. And Syndicate Courier definitely has her own definition of natural law, being that what is natural or what has to do with nature just is, or just changes in and of itself without force. That is what nature is. And so you can't force nature. This is what I really don't understand here. So the thing is, when you look at her YouTube channel, you'll see all of these things that really kind of like contradict her own natural law handbook, basically, where it's kind of like, you're not allowed to use archetypal energies because they violate natural law. You also cannot use art, music, or, symbolism in order to influence people, as that's a violation of natural law. And basically, everything that is supposedly a violation of natural law, according to her, is exactly what she's doing in her videos. It's literally no different than the Inquisition, basically persecuting whoever they called heretics or witches or whatever, and then adopting their techniques for themselves in order for them to benefit, profit, etc., or they literally invert their practices and turn something that's essentially dark, it turns something, that is essentially beneficial for humanity into something that's poison for humanity. So, this is pretty much exactly what Syndicate Courier is. Go watch my previous two videos for that information, or look at her Law of the Land handbook for yourself. But the orders of the airship fortress, which by the way we see Medusa here, make of that symbolism what you will there. Don't use archetypal energies though. But anyway, it's described as a militia here, so it says that secure and protect essential infrastructure worldwide, secure and guard all communities and places where people gather worldwide, educate the public regarding a transition to natural laws codified in the Court of Ages Law of the Land Handbook, assist neighborhoods in implementing their neighborhood emergency preparedness plans, and disseminate the materials and information found at the links, which I was even talking about, her Court of Ages, Law of the Land Handbook, and transition to natural law. So, also, she has many aliases, Queen of Queens, Heaven, Sky, Water, Earth. She has many, many aliases that she goes by. Kali, Electromega, Sophia, Isis, Artemis, First Source of Life Essence, and the Christ. Does now reserve all rights by natural law as sole owner and creator of the universe. All rights are protected by natural law. Unauthorized use of any aspect of living systems is prohibited. Right, okay. So you're literally calling yourself creator of the universe. There's clear narcissism right there. And I guess I'm going to be somebody that is spreading fake news according to her. So that's exactly why I'm pointing this one out here, is that there's always consistent damage control for her. And you can even see damage control videos that she has made in general for other people. And I'm willing to bet that there are more people calling her out that she is not doing damage control on at all, or even trying to engage, because it's all about self-preservation, and in this case probably getting cult followers for your airship fortress or whatever. So, and the thing too that is really worrying, what's kind of interesting here is, sorry, let me start over. What is interesting here that draws me is that it says, to Romana Didulo, 1, and to the airship fortress and indigenous tribe of Artemis. So, indigenous is a term in UNDRIP, United Nations Declarations for Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Indigenous is not a term that's clearly defined, and it basically allots all these land and resource rights to quote-unquote indigenous people. So it's pretty well a land grab and a means of control, essentially, for the UN to implement their sinister agendas. And the UN is also kind of like, we'll say, the central punching bag, if you will, where, like, imagine all these organizations and stuff are like either octopi or tentacles in and of themselves. And all these tentacles are like little miniature octopi, if that makes sense. And so their tentacles have this grasp and interconnectivity. And so the UN kind of seems to be the front man, the blue helmets, if you will, for the sustainable development agenda, and for who is, trying to push the kind of agenda that I described as the biodigital convergence. But anyway, here you can see with Romana Didulo is somebody that the Court of Ages plays good cop, bad cop with all the time, where there are certain things that they call her out for and basically call her crazy while at the same time protecting her. So it's, figure that one out, right? And this operation is called Save Sophia, and Sophia is one of the names that Syndicate Courier goes by. So, I don't know. This good cop, bad cop thing with Romana Didulo that they're playing is just clearly for a distraction. And if somebody's consistently contradicting themselves, where they're basically attacking somebody and then protecting them in the next breath, that's a pretty clear sign that they are, working together. And also, just because people are calling each other out, and if that's all they do, that also doesn't mean that they're not working together, because this is the way the Order Out of Chaos agenda works, is you have an enemy behind closed doors who hides like a coward, and they control different aspects of a narrative that makes you, pick a side or whatever, and the only way to deal with it is by not picking a side and looking at who funds or gives orders to these different sides, if you will, and you'll generally always find, a certain central party or central parties that are controlling that narrative, if you will, just kind of like how Switzerland, quote-unquote neutral country in World War II, funds both the Axis and the Allies. Anyway, reading this out. We congratulate Romana Didulo for her success in grounding the warrior-protector paradigm on Earth. It was a long, arduous task, and we appreciate the dedication and commitment with which she has carried out her mission and continues to do so. Unfortunately, it appears that the weak among men, of which there are many, are now infected with the poison of envy and do now attempt to infiltrate her ranks and hijack her mission. To Romana Didulo, it is hereby advised that you, 1, reconsider your relationship with Ricky Mans if you haven't already, 2, consider expanding your field of operations to the United States of America forthwith, To airship fortress, guard all borders between Canada and the United States of America. 2. Ensure safe and speedy entrance into the United States for Romana Didulo and her retinue, should she continue to come. 3. Guard and protect Romana Didulo as she continues her mission and queenly duties. To the tribe of Artemis, see that Romana Didulo is welcomed, accommodated, and protected in the United States of America. So once again, it's literally attacking somebody and then protecting them in the next breath. And there isn't an example of me showing Romana Didulo being attacked here, but I have shown that in previous videos. So, and of course the one signing this is Artemis, or Moon Goddess. Artemis Moon is what Cindy K. Courier goes by on Facebook, and Artemis is one of the names in one of her previous orders where she described herself as sole creator of the universe, narcissism personified. So this is an interesting thing from Freedom George here, or whose real name is Tyson Billings. Before I read that, sorry, just something I wanted to say before I forget. Cindy K. Courier actually is tied to Gordon James Barry, and he's one of the figurehead leaders of the Save the Children convoy, just like Freedom George here, whose real name is Tyson Billings. It says, Sheepdog is covered in his own blood after fighting off wolves protecting his flock while the sheep gently comforts him. Regardless of how physically strong or emotionally tough somebody is, showing them how much you appreciate their efforts goes a long way. The dog is willing to die for his sheep, and the gesture of the sheep comforting him is all he needs. Never take someone for granted who is willing to fight for you or stand by you in your time of need. Appreciate their efforts and show them that you are grateful. Okay? So that's interesting, basically saying that you'll support your colleagues and that sort of a thing there. But here's the question. Do you think that he would die for you? Do you think that he would really take a bullet for you in any way, shape, or form, whether it be literal or, just metaphorical? Why would he plead guilty during the truck convoy? I think he was one of the only ones, if not the only one, who pleaded guilty for any charge during the truck convoy. When people, okay, they claim the truck convoy is some kind of, organic thing, whatever. I'll get to that in a sec. But why would he be pleading guilty if he didn't do anything wrong? And I understand they could have tapped him with multiple charges, but I'm sure other people, other notable people during the truck convoy as well have had many charges, and nobody else pled guilty for anything. So it's just like, if nobody was in the wrong, what is he doing? Is he really going to truly stand up for you? This is the kind of thing that just makes me question his integrity in and of itself, beyond what he's already involved in, and me already talking about the Save the Children convoy in the last 5 or 6 videos or whatever. So the truck convoy was, everybody gives a different answer as to who the leader was. Tamara Leach, Bridget Belton, Tom Marazzo, Pat King, whatever. And the reality of the situation is that nothing was organic. And I think it was 94 or 95, the Illuminati card game, loaded with predictive programming, basically ended up showing the truck convoy. It's also shown 9/11 and other events as well, but the Pentagon being bombed, and as well it shows an image of the Twin Towers. And the truck convoy card is interesting because it shows people with signs protesting and trucks in the background or whatever. And one of the signs that somebody's holding, it says long haul. Okay, you're in it for the long haul. And if you think about it, it's not predictive programming for the event in Ottawa per se, right? Even though the Simpsons did that, they predictive programmed the Ottawa event, but the truck convoy and the Illuminati card game comes out in 95. You have United We Roll truck convoy in, I think it was 2018, 2019. It was nowhere near as big as what was in Ottawa in 2022, which we were just talking about. And then you had when they rebranded the freedom movement into the unity movement, if you will. And then from there you have the fourth thing, which is this Save the Children convoy. So it's really not about the trucks, because a convoy is really just like a protective escort for something in its dictionary definition. So it's just really something sinking into somebody's subconscious, if you will, manipulating them to a point where they just kind of accept an event as it comes up. And that's why predictive programming happens. It's not because people are just arrogant and have to show you the truth or whatever by whatever soul contract or whatever the hell they do behind closed doors. It's in order for you to be desensitized when these things happen so that you subconsciously accept it, and then things become normal faster. Things become a new normal faster. I don't like stupid brands. So every time just on a side note, every time I hear something, no new normal, we the fringe, whatever it is, or even something else on the opposite side of the agenda or whatever, it's just, I always reject brand phrases all the time. And when I see something being chanted like a mantra constantly, is when I think something deserves to be looked into. And it's almost like casting people into a mental box where they can't think outside of this small mental box, and that's pretty much exactly how I describe a hex. So, anyway, these are the three Canadian ambassadors, if you will, of Trinity Productions that first made a key relationship with Christine Anderson and probably other people all over Europe too. And so I'm going to go a little bit over the tour and who some of the sponsors are and who some of the guests are and stuff. So I'll be talking about Judy Stinson, Bethany Nodwell, and Stacy Cowder, who we see here. Judy, Stacy, Beth. And here are some of the tour sponsors. You have... Okay, I don't know why that's not working, so I'm just going to go here. One of the sponsors is the Canadian Trucking Magazine, which is interesting, all things considering the fact that with the Trucker Magazine, they were the ones who published a sort of public notice, which is basically like a land claim for portions of southern Ontario. And in southern Ontario, if you will, stretching to just outside of North Bay, and then swallowing up Ottawa and eastward, and I can't remember to what extent even further south, you basically have this sort of public notice land claim, and there are many names on there of so-called native people. I just say so-called because I'm not sure if a lot of them are even native or not to begin with, but the only settler, if you will, that's on there is Gordon James Barry, who is one of the figurehead leaders of the Save the Children convoy. And then you had somebody whose name is Joseph Nixon that goes by Chief Little Wolverine on there. So it's interesting that Trucking Magazine is supporting this event here, and being that public notice was published in the Trucking Magazine. So you have people like Pastor Hildebrandt, Tanya Gaw of Action for Canada, some of these people I've called out, Edward Cornell of Vets for Freedom, Lisa Robinson, who I'll talk about very briefly, and then Maggie Braun, who I've spoke about in other videos. And so basically, in a nutshell here, just to briefly go over Lisa Robinson, you have her sitting on board for the Rotary Club of Pickering, and so Rotary Club, just like Masons, Lions, Orange Order, Order of the Eastern Star, and all these different, chapters of Masonic fraternities, if you will, they all kind of pose as community groups that give back to the community or build society, if you will. It's why Masons think of themselves as builders. And the Rotary Club was actually first founded by Masons. And so the reason why I think that they're somewhat of an important group to focus on is because they're what make up the fabric of the system, and they're the ones who control the directions of these narratives and things going on. So if you think about it like a police officer in a courtroom and the judge is also a Mason, the police officer just needs to do the corresponding penalty signs, signals, or passwords, if you will, in order to, ask for a favor or be acquitted if they were using excessive force or whatever be it have you. So the craft practice of Freemasons is something that definitely needs to be looked into, and also pretty much the way these people operate. So all in all, it's like the fabric between aspects of the system, and then you have other higher end fraternities and stuff like the Jesuits or the Knights of Malta. And so all these things, of course, appear at face value to be like charities or giving back to communities and that kind of a thing, but not really so much the case when you actually dive into the nuts and bolts and see that pretty much everybody who's important in history, if you will, is a part of one of these fraternities, if you will, like Alexander MacDonald, founder of Canada, member of the Orange Order. So this is Judy Stinson here, who I scrolled past. She's one of the Canadian ambassadors that I mentioned, has a background as a nutritionalist, and as well former journalist for CBC News. So it's interesting being that you have somebody who worked for CBC News helping Christine Anderson, who, falls on the right wing of the political spectrum, and then CBC is on the left wing of the political spectrum. It's an interesting background of people that are sort of like ambassadors for her. And as well, two wings, same bird, you can generally find this kind of example of what I say, two wings, same bird, when you see left and right politician debating each other in the House of Commons, only to end up both signing the same bill. So, and then as well, she has a background in real estate, interestingly enough. So, and went to U of T. And then now for Stacey Cowder, who is producer of this particular play here called The Greatest Love Story Ever Forgotten. And so, as well, just a little fun fact, Toronto Fringe Festival doesn't have to do with any of the We the Fringe stuff. And like I said, I reject brands because they pretty much put you in a mental box where you can't think outside. And religion and political parties and patriotism, which patriot pretty much comes from patriarch. It's like a parent figure. You're always looking, and the etymology of religion is to bind. So it's just pretty much you're always stuck in little boxes, if you will. And that's kind of what these things do. But anyway, no issue in particular with religious people in general, But anyway, being that, the Beth Shalom Synagogue is attended by Stacey Cowder, we can see on page 23. It's interesting that this synagogue here publishes something called Pillars of Zionism, because here's the thing I kind of want to get at, okay? The term anti-Semitic is kind of like BS, because it refers to people who speak Semitic languages, especially Hebrew and Arabic, and then as well, Aramaic and other things. So the thing is Jewish is not a language, right? So therefore being anti-Jewish is not the same thing as anti-Semitic, so that term doesn't even make sense. And then anti-Zionism or Zionism. Zionism means wanting to form a Jewish state or Jewish country. So therefore you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, is my point. And organizations like B'nai B'rith, which means Children of the Covenant, started out as a Masonic lodge, but anyway, they basically say things like anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are one and the same, and they basically, as well, keep you from questioning certain narratives and stuff that revolve around either Jewish people, Zionists, or whatever. They keep the doors closed for things like that, and as well distort definitions of things like Zionism and, Semitism and stuff like that. So they as well are guilty for keeping people trapped in mental boxes, if you will. So then here we have Beth Ann Nodwell, right? She is a writer for Frontline Defense magazine, which basically is like, how do I put it? It does work like around like the Canadian military and like national defense and stuff like that. So, and as well, she does social media for this like PR firm, and as well has published social media for the Department of National Defense and briefly worked for Stats Canada. So she's had government jobs and as well has basically an experience in what appears to be like journalism and maybe even marketing, I guess. And so that goes hand in hand with Judy Stinson, right? And as well, on the side note here with Beth Ann Nodwell, she's also a jazz singer, so art's cool, I guess, respect that. But I don't really respect Christine Anderson, if I'm honest with you, or anybody that is basically bringing in her tour, because her tour is essentially a distraction, and, you pay, a few $100s or whatever for a ticket to go see her speak and call out the puppets, and call out the puppets at superficial values that they themselves don't care about, because the thing is every world leader is just a puppet, and even the head of the WEF, Klaus Schwab or whatever, whose mother is a Rothschild, is a puppet, and so these people all just act as giant smoke screens for what we don't see. And so the thing is, yeah, if I knew some of those people's names and stuff like that, the Orsini family, Elda Brandini, Orange Nassau, and all that, they don't like being called out, but they also don't like their modus operandi being broken down. And so the thing is, once you break down their modus operandi and what it is they do, they're pretty well powerless, even the people who are behind closed doors. And so I'll get to that a little bit later, because there's definitely some thoughts I have in that regard. So anyway, Beth Ann Nodwell apparently is a former nurse and left her job having to do with the so-called, the coercive medical measures, lockdowns and stuff. I want to try avoid using certain keywords because I want to keep this video on YouTube. But anyway, she was one of the managers one of the organizers for the Adopt a Trucker campaign. So I haven't looked too closely into Adopt a Trucker in and of itself, but the thing is, so before I was talking about the truck convoy, and then I guess I'll also say Marcus Ray as well. I'll mention as well as his Marcus Ray's 9/11 events and the truck convoy in their own perspective regards were like dress rehearsals for martial law is what they were. And then if you take now just speaking about the truck convoy, another aspect that people don't really think about is the fact that, so we know that there was a lot of money seized and held and stuff like that, but the thing is a lot of crypto wallets and stuff like that as well were seized. And so this was basically a way for people to experiment with Web3 based software. And so this kind of a thing playing into, seizing assets on the blockchain and that kind of a thing. Digital ID firms always partner with blockchain firms, right? And essentially this kind of thing is like a way of experimenting with financial methods and means of control over people's wallets, profiles, and stuff like that. And I just want to say too that in this regard, this is not something I'm super savvy about. I have touched on a little bit in my last few videos, but somebody named James Scott, who's the person who I first heard the term bio-digital convergence through, knows a whole lot more about Web3 software, biology, AI, and the amalgamation of biology and AI. And so I would recommend checking him out because as well, this kind of subject matter having to do with seizing crypto accounts and experimenting with Web3 software is probably something James Scott would know about, and I intend to have some discussions with him about that sometime. And of course, people should probably as well look at his content while they're at it. So so I've already mentioned Policy Horizons Canada and the biodigital convergence, but here is something the WEF kind of is talking about something very similar or the same thing using different terminology. Recent technological advancements have ushered in a new era of Internet of Bodies with an unprecedented number of connected devices and sensors being affixed to or even implanted and ingested into the human body. The Internet of Body generates tremendous amounts of biometric and human behavioral data. This is, in turn, fueling the transformation of health, research, and industry, as well as other aspects of social life, such as the adoption of Internet of Body in work settings or the provision of new options for entertainment, all with remarkable data-driven innovation and social benefits. Yet the Internet of Bodies also raises new challenges for data governance that concern not only individual privacy and autonomy, but also new risks of discrimination and bias in employment, education, finance, access to health insurance, and other important areas for the distribution of social resources, or whatever they allow distributed is what should be really specified here. So, and experimenting with tech like this, I understand this is talking about stuff being ingested into the human body, so there are aspects of this that definitely don't pertain to exactly what I'm saying, but the whole agenda, though, has to do with fusing biological and AI together, so therefore there are other means in which they're doing this that, once again, people can look at James Scott for, but this is what they plan to do, and this is the way that they would control carbon-based life, right? So, and when they talk about reducing carbon, all organic life on Earth is carbon, so what can I tell you? So, yeah, Christine Anderson, I've already called her out in a previous video, which I'll link in the description, of course. But it says she's worked for the EU Parliament basically since July 2019, and she is aligned with something called the Identity and Democracy group of the EU. But the thing is, like, the European Union is just another theatrical body like Congress or Parliament, just on an international stage. That's really all it is, and the EU is just as much on board the sustainable development agenda as the United Nations themselves. So, and this Identity and Democracy group is ran by this guy in Italy, Marco Zanni, the elected president of the group in 2019. And the ID group has two vice presidents, Jordan Bardella in France and Gunnar Beck in Germany. And they claim the focus is to create jobs, growth, increase security, tackling illegal immigration, as well as making the EU less bureaucratic. So it just sounds like right-wing theater is what it is. So here is the so-called plan of the Save the Children convoy they say was leaked by Vets for Freedom. I've already gone over this in prior videos, but I'll re-explain briefly, is that this is not a leak, it's a revelation of the method explaining what's going to happen. And let me explain here is that, so Vets for Freedom, or Veterans for Freedom, call out the Save the Children convoy. The Save the Children convoy work with Maggie Braun, and Maggie Braun works with Veterans for Freedom. So why would they be working with her? How does that make sense? Well, here's the thing, if you actually think about Marcus Ray's plan in the past, which is virtually identical, if not the same, to this plan here in this video, then all I have to say is with his plan, it included ex-police and ex-military. This is Veterans for Freedom coming out and speaking out against them. And then in a previous video, I showed an image that showed Vets for Freedom and Police on Guard for Thee speaking out against them. Now, what are Police on Guard for Thee and Vets for Freedom? Ex-police and ex-military. Therefore, they're on board, and they're just part of casting another illusion with this so-called leak. And as well, listen to the voice here as well, and then listen to the voice in this particular video I have linked, and you'll see that they're the same. This is Sean Bradley, who goes by Iron Crow of Hammerhead Garage. He's generally seen in the company of Gordon James Barry. I don't know the extent of their relationship, but essentially Sean Bradley or Iron Crow or whatever the hell you want to call him is just as well, a part of this agenda, and he's not working against Vets for Freedom. He's clearly working with them, as he was the one in the recording. So, like I said, just do the voice comparison and you'll see for yourself. And here in the About Us, you have different directors like Edward Cornell, who's one of the people on tour with Christine Anderson, and you have Brian Peckford and all these other people here. I've already done a video on Vets for Freedom, and they're part of this Global Veterans Coalition. You can see here at the bottom, and then the Canadian Veterans Network. So that's kind of their whole, their little sub-network, if you will. And Vets for Freedom is attached to other freedom groups in Canada. And so you can see here, ties to the US and as well the Netherlands. So, and one of the people on tour with Christine Anderson is this Dutch lawyer. So, now I'm going to kind of close this one off here. I just want to say that this is a pretty interesting video to check out, so go for it. It's filled with all kinds of interesting information. The reason why I bring this video up is so when you get close to the truth, people naturally target you, right? And so what ended up happening was somebody tried to add me on Facebook using somebody I know who had passed away, using their image and their name, okay? So, yeah, it hurt my feelings. I got angry, whatever. And that all happened as soon as after I recorded my previous video. Not after I uploaded it, but once I recorded it. Then a day later, this video from Dallas Hills comes out about me. And, of course, going on damage control for other things. So, here's the thing, right? Is naturally, I'm not blaming Dallas. Whether he did it or not, I don't care. But the point I'm getting at is that these things timed in a similar way, it would just naturally, they want me to be angry at somebody, and they would want me to be, again, whether Dallas did it or not is irrelevant, but the point is that if I was to zero in on him, hate him, get angry, get pissed off, call him an idiot several times like he did with me in this video, then that would just be the purpose that this would serve, is just to destroy credibility and to essentially have me make an ass out of myself. And so, all in all, being that somebody did use, a loved one who passed away against me like that, all I have to say to whoever it is that did that, or whatever group of people conspired to do that directly, whoever you are, you're a coward, and essentially, you're definitely afraid of somebody else above you, and you're definitely afraid to show your face to me. So, obviously what this tells me straight up is that you're afraid of me, and same with the people above you who are hidden, they're even more afraid of me. So, great, I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and keep exposing you guys, and go from there. So, nice play, try harder, and also check this one out and watch someone blow their cover. But anyway, I'll be uploading a short. So, thanks for watching, guys, and if anybody has any questions for me, wants to get a hold of me, feel free to go in the comments section below, or they can find me on Facebook at Matt Unseated, no the in between, and message me directly. So, thanks for watching, everybody, and take care of yourselves.